you're running Liferay for a while, that means in a previous version, then you definitely have an upgrade to do if you want to come to the current version. If you keep the current version running for a while, you will need to run the upgrade in order to upgrade to the next version. Naturally, that is what we are going to do with the next version as well, but there's always an upgrade process in between. So you might wonder, what do I do in order to upgrade Liferay to the current version? And naturally, I can't really tell you what you do in order to upgrade Liferay to the next version because that's not out yet, at least at the time of recording this. We are mainly talking about the upgrade process to Liferay DXP 7.1, and there are certain steps that you just need to pay attention to. The steps that we have are, first of all, a dependency upgrade. If you remember what we configured for the application servers, for example, for Wildfly, we copied a few libraries that Liferay depends on into the global modules folder for that application server, for Wildfly, for example. For Tomcat, we had an easy start because we just used the delivered bundle with Tomcat, but trust me, it contains a few of these dependencies in the global modules folder as well. And naturally, every new version of Liferay comes with a new version of those so-called dependencies. Those are the global libraries. That's the easiest thing you can upgrade. It's basically just new version of your files, the ones that we deliver, instead of the ones that we delivered with the previous version. Now, the next step you'll have to do is the database upgrade. Liferay comes with its database, it creates its database, and the new version might have new features, which means new fields in the database, new tables, new structures, new data. So we got to upgrade that, and that is probably the most laborious process, the process that you are most involved with. Well, maybe it's the next part, the custom development upgrade. So if you have some custom plugins on the previous version of Liferay and you want to bring it to the new version of Liferay, then yes, you've got to upgrade them as well, if only with the code dependencies, upgrading to access the new versions of Liferay's APIs. Or, a little bit worse, if you change Liferay's implementation around the API, anywhere where we don't provide an API, then yes, you'll really have something to do. But that is something that is more or less covered in the developer courses. Well, working around the API is actually not covered in the development courses because you can do that anywhere and we just can't tell you what it is. We just can tell you, please minimize your work that does not rely on the API, because we can only help you with the API changes. We cannot help you with anything that you change behind our back. As I like to say, it's our business to change our implementation, and if you choose to change our implementation as well, we have no clue that you do so, so we really can't help you there. Anyways, that's the custom development upgrade, the custom code, and coming to, well, the one process that we can help you most with, that's the database upgrade process. We have some changes that will apply to everybody who is around for a while, that is since Liferay 6.2 or earlier, because up to version 6.2, the upgrade process was fully contained within Liferay itself. Back then, the upgrade process basically said, you'll start Liferay on the old database with appropriate permission to change the database structure, and Liferay will take care of everything on its own. And once Liferay is started up, you will have everything in your database that is required, and you're ready to go. Now, with every database, there are structures in there. There's some data in there that might be changed manually, that might be a leftover of some former upgrade. From time to time, a database upgrade might run into problems. That's just what happened. During the developer courses, I like to state to everybody in the room that when you actually change Liferay's database through SQL, when you use any database tool to look at the database and then to change it, you are on your own. The very basic way to work with Liferay's database is to purely work through the API. There are not necessarily all foreign key relationships fixed in the database, and for a reason, we do not document the database structure, but we do document the API. So any access, any write access to the database should go, actually must go through the API. Everybody who manually writes to their database using SQL or typical database tools voids their warranty. A horror story. This is not quite in the upgrade process, but we actually had a customer who did just this. Imagine you want to import 10,000 user accounts to your new system, and well, somebody in that company actually looked at their database and figured out what they need in Liferay's database. What do we need to have a user? We need to have some permissions, some groups, some other data, custom fields, anything in there. And they had a perfect view of everything that was required in Liferay's tables. Everything worked and they knew what to do. Or so they thought. I'm giving away part of the effect here, but they actually nailed it, and every structure, every relationship was really well identified. So they just bulk imported using SQL tool their 10,000 users into the database, and we're happy. Nobody touched Liferay's API for that, and everything was good. Half a year later, to add drama, I'll say on a Sunday night, 3 a.m., the whole system came to a complete halt. And of course, everybody freaked out. Liferay stops. Fix it, it's your fault. Well, that was fix it, it's your fault to Liferay support. Why would it? Yesterday it ran, today it doesn't. Well, some investigation turned out that, first of all, their log files were overflowing, and their log files were overflowing with exceptions, database-related exceptions, and that database-related exception said duplicate key exception. So they've just been using primary keys for that database that were not in use half a year ago when they imported all of their users into the database. But after 6 months, Sunday night at 3 a.m., they had the first duplicate key exception. So Liferay can't write their documents or its objects to the database, meaning it fails, and it fails hard, because what can it do when there's a duplicate key violation? Nothing. So basically, when nobody expected it anymore, when everything went right for half a year, and they were really happy to fully understand the database structure, something failed. And it was easy to prove that, yeah, you voided your warranty because you wrote to the database. But this is actually an experience that I don't want anybody to have. It's not like I'm telling you this to blame that customer. They didn't know. Nobody knows. Just use the API, period, and you don't run into that kind of issues. Even if you fully understand everything, there's still a little possibility that you didn't get it all right. And we don't document the database for a reason. This doesn't really belong into the upgrade process, but I always feel that this message being hammered home is quite important. I rather like people not to run into those issues. Now, with the database upgrade process, this is the next possibility where when you just write to the database and everything actually works for longer than half a year, the next upgrade process might run into the same issues. It might find data that it doesn't know, that you wrote manually to the database. So if that upgrade process then fails because you wrote manually to the database, well, this is kind of at the time when you don't want it to fail. Okay, but coming back to the database upgrade, the previous versions you upgraded just by pointing Liferay to the existing database with appropriate permission, and Liferay did all of this upgrade by itself. The current version of Liferay will do it slightly different. The current versions, I'll have to say, so all of the DXP versions, Liferay 7.x, 7.0, 7.1, do have a separate upgrade tool that you can run on your database. This is not Liferay within your application server, but this is a command line tool that you start that then connects to the database and upgrades the database step by step by step. The upgrade process in 6.2 was still monolithic, just like Liferay was, and now it's actually really modular, and we can run the upgrade process in many different steps. So even if you have manipulated your database in the past, even if there is some weird data in there that the upgrade process can't handle, you don't need to run the monolithic upgrade process, but you can run in many different and short steps. But in general, everything you need is to point the DB upgrade tool to your database, wait for a while, and you're done. That's the ideal situation. In case that doesn't happen, of course, you can go with the multiple individual steps. We have a warning in here that I personally don't agree with, which says your backup includes, as with previous upgrades, we need to ensure a proper backup is in place in case of failure. At the least, the backup should include database backup and document library backup. Well, if you remember the old chapters, what is a backup? A backup is a collection of data that you have recently demonstrated that you can use it to restore a fully functioning but virgin system. So the definition a backup should include at a minimum doesn't really work. It's a backup or it's not a backup. So actually, I think the upgrade process is the perfect time to do another recent test of your backup. I wouldn't ever upgrade my production system. What I would do is I'll take my backup, restore it to a fully new system, and then upgrade that system. Why would I want to go to my production system, at least for the initial test? Why would I go to my production system and then maybe roll it back? Take it out of production, do the upgrade, discover something doesn't work. So what I do is I'll take my backup, restore to a new system, and then I'll work on that new system, upgrade that, and then I'll just switch them out. My new upgraded system is then my new production system, and the retired production system is just switched off and discarded with cloud machines, not with metal. That's my personal stand with backups. I rather like that definition than just the minimum definition of a backup. But, well, your mileage may vary. Just don't come to me crying that I can't restore from my backup, because then it's not a backup. Now, I told you about the modularization of the upgrade process. You can upgrade the core by itself. There's one upgrade process for Liferay's core that still contains quite a bit of data, but not everything, by far not everything. And then we have one upgrade process for each individual module. And when you just want to do that, upgrading the core is actually very easy. There's the documentation. You'll create one of the OSGI config files with a very simple content. So the file name is listed here, and the content auto upgrade equals false as well. So this is what the release manager configuration takes, and it will make sure that you only upgrade the core and not the modules. Now, why would you want to do that? Or what do you get from that? And how do you upgrade the modules? Next slide. The keyword is GoGo shell, which is the OSGI shell that you can use to connect into the tool, into the upgrade process, and you can basically connect to it through Telnet, and you'll see a few commands here, the upgrade list, upgrade execute that you will execute with certain module names, and then we have verification processes in there that make sure that Liferay can make sense of everything you have in the database. So you can list all of our verification processes, and then you can go module by module by module. And if there is any problem showing up in one of these modules, you'll just have to run that upgrade process again and not all of the upgrade processes until then. That was one of the big complaints in the previous versions when we had the monolithic upgrade process. You could run an upgrade for 2 hours and then run into a problem. So you needed to fix the problem and then run the 2 hours again until you ran into the next problem at 2.5 hours. That's not quite popular. And yes, we've listened to the messages, and yes, we fixed it, and this is the fix, where you upgrade the core once and then every single module, if you wish, individually. Now, as little as I like to know what the database structure is, It says here the database table release contains the information to check the upgrade status. You can get the same information also from the OSGI modules, but in this case, just looking at the release table, I would say, is allowed. Just don't assume by looking at the release table you understand everything and you can mock with it and write to it, update stuff manually. We have one row for the core, which lets Liferay know that, yes, the core upgrade actually succeeded. So you're now on this version, on 7.0.0 or 7.1.0. And then there is one row per OSGI module that has some database connection, and it will be on the current version or not. However, it's not that easy to identify which version of this OSGI module you are running, because they are numbered technically and not through marketing numbers. So the core is labeled with 7.0.0, but each module might be starting at 1.0.0. So this is something that you might want to look up. It also is possible for your own custom plugins to provide those upgrade routines, and there we're completely out of luck with guessing the version numbers that you are using for your own plugins. But within Liferay, we can actually have two modules of different versions that are aiming at a single Liferay core version. So we can't really make all of those module versions equivalent or equal to the core versions. That just doesn't work. It's all semantic versioning, and semantic versioning comes with its own rules. That's what we get. For plugins, well, there it says you should check the build number field for a matching installed version. That's basically check what version you have installed, and it should match the release table information. This is a very generic overview over the upgrade, but it's basically listing all of those steps. Now, for a system administrator, I would even say this is probably not within the realm of your duties to run an upgrade for Liferay. Maybe to run the upgrade against the database if it's been tested already and if all the modules upgrade cleanly. But as this is not system administration, this is DevOps, this is the dev part of your role. This is where you actually might need to get your hands dirty with some code, with the modules, with interfacing with developers for making sure that you have the right module, that you have the right version of the module, and that the upgrade process is run properly. So in system administration, I would say you rather get the exact documentation for your personal upgrade. In DevOps, these are the steps that you'll need to take care of in an abstract way. And if you want to know them more concrete in an actual step-by-step fashion, we are also offering an upgrade training where we do an actual upgrade from 7.0 to 7.1 or from previous versions. And in there we can also cover upgrades from older versions. And that is available separately, and it really won't fit well into this course to make it applicable to everybody. That's just a separate step that you can take, and we'd be happy to see you there. Quick review. The upgrade process can be split into three main parts. And it is first the code, the dependency upgrade, that upgrades dependencies and the configuration. And then we'll have the database upgrade, upgrading the database so that the existing content can be used with a new version, and custom development upgrade, that's basically yours, as well as marketplace plugins that you'll need to upgrade to match the version of your new Liferay installation. In our case here, that's DXP 7.1, but it could be any other version. Basically, the principle still applies. What is not in here, funny enough, is the upgrade of Liferay, the web application itself. So it's kind of a given that when you want to run 7.1, don't just upgrade the dependencies. Also, you'll need to install the new version of Liferay anyways. But that's, I would say, omitted because it's more or less understood that running a new version requires installing a new version plus this. That concludes the upgrade chapter, and with it, it also concludes the DevOps training that we have. I hope that I could provide some value, that it was relevant mostly for everybody. I know that there are some chapters that are more and some chapters that are less relevant because of different kinds of jobs that you have. You're more system administration or more developer oriented, and sometimes more database or more operating system oriented than just on the application layer. But I guess this was an overview over everything you get in touch with Liferay. If that has helped you, I'd be very happy to hear about this. If you are missing certain chapters or certain information, then I'd be also very happy to hear about it, because that only helps us to improve this course for the future. And we can even give you those hints just in the dialogue, and then manually extend this course or gradually extend this course as it exists on Liferay University.